Hey everybody, this is Modern Refugee out here this morning having a little coffee. And I thought I'd do a video for you guys today on EDC. Now, EDC or everyday carry is become a bit of a catchphrase here in the prepper sphere. And if you look up EDC online, you're going to see just a whole list of stuff that people carry nowadays. But the concept of EDC is not a new one whatsoever. It has been around for time eternal. And this particular video here, I'm going to show you guys my grandmother's EDC. Now, my grandmother was born in 1903. She died in 2000. And when the farm got sold around 1980, she moved in and lived with us. Now, we already lived a bit of a subsistence lifestyle, so my grandmother coming to live with us was just a normal part of life. But my grandmother always carried certain things with her, and the first thing was how she carried it, and she carried it in an apron. All the older women wore aprons. The first thing they did when they got up and they were going to start working for the day is they put their apron on to protect their clothing. Now, all the old aprons were homemade. They made them, and they all had pockets in them, and they wore them. And when they ripped or they got frayed, they got repaired, just like that little repair is right there. Now, this particular apron here is one of my grandmother's aprons that I found in my mom's stuff after my mom passed away. So this is quite old. And my grandmother was right-handed, so her right-hand pocket here actually had the stuff. That's where she carried the stuff in. And the first thing that all the older women carried, and it was something that actually my mother carried as well. And what that is safety pins. And you can see there in that right-hand pocket, you can see the safety pins that my grandmother had. And safety pins were used to repair anything, fix anything, clip things together. And it's just something you don't see a lot of people use safety pins anymore. People have gone more like the tape or the zip tie route here in the modern era. But safety pins were right straight across the board. All the old timers carried safety pins. And even the other pocket here has a small brass safety pin in it. And if they didn't wear an apron, they would put a safety pin in the bottom of their shirt. Now, my mother, my father, my grandfather, and a lot of the older people that I hung out with when I was growing up, you could always see that on the bottom of their shirts. They would have a safety pin in there, one, sometimes two, but you'd always see that little bit of silver sticking through the um, cloth on the bottom of their shirts, and they all carried a safety pin. Now, my grandmother, being a farmer's wife, and cook stoves were a big thing. Electric stoves, a lot of the old places when I was growing up still had a wood cook stove in them, and our place was no exception to that. So another thing that they always carried is they always carried boxes of matches, these little boxes of matches like this. I can remember my grandmother always having not a book, now mind you, it was always be these small boxes of matches. And this too I actually found with this apron when I was going through my mom's stuff. And they would use these to light the cook stoves. They would use these to light the oil lamps that were in the house or any of the heaters that we had. These little box matches were always carried in their pockets. Now, the old men that smoked, they would typically carry a Zippo because they all rolled their own cigarettes. So they would have a tobacco pouch and they would have papers, and they always would fill that back from like Prince Albert in a can, Velvet. God, where's some of the other ones? There was one that had a top on the package, but I can't remember what the name of that was now. But they would all roll their own. There was no like bought ones. They wouldn't go buy that stuff. They would just buy the tobacco, and that's how they would go. But my grandmother never smoked. And then this right here is the last thing that was always in my grandmother's pocket. It was a small little folding pocket knife. Now, this one right here, I bought sometime in the early 1990s, and I gave it to my grandmother to replace one that she had that was quite worn. And I still remember buying this for her. And this was basically a small hand hand carry paring knife. She used it as a paring knife. So they would use this to peel potatoes, to take the top off a carrot or a onion. And another thing that they would use these for would be to take the twine out of sewn bags. So if they were opening up a bag of feed for the chickens, or they were opening a bag of flour that was stitched shut, they would use that sharp tip on either a penknife or a small stockman like this, and they would open that and they would take that twine out, and they would always save that twine. So this was basically just I guess a pocket handheld version of a paring knife. That's how they would use it. Opening letters was another thing, because didn't have email back then. You had regular mail. So they would go check the mail. They'd see a letter they need to open. This was their letter opener. So that's just some of the things that I remember. But aprons, all my grandmother's friends, when we went over there and stuff, every one of the older generation of women, they all wore an apron, and they all had some variations of that stuff in their aprons. And like I said, I can remember that growing up, several different farms that we went to and stuff on a regular basis. All the old women had that. My mother, she sort of got out of wearing an apron, and she was more of a blue jeans type, because she was always doing work out on the farm. And she never really carried a knife. She would always go back to the house and grab a knife if she needed one. That was sort of her mindset. But the safety pins, that was in everybody's possession. But anyway, this is Modern Refugee. Appreciate all my subscribers out there. Hope you guys got a little information, a little entertainment out of this video. As always, just letting everybody know out there that EDC is not a modern thing. That's been going on for time eternal. But anyway, hope you guys enjoyed this video, and you guys have a good one.